Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
So Logan, it's official. You are the Fantasy Gaming League champion of 2023, and Mr. Paper is the Fantasy Gaming League Grand Prix winner. So you'll be taking on the Toad in 2024, rekindling an old rivalry. Yeah. I won't go through all the data and bits and pieces verbatim now, because we will plan to have a bit of an end of season review. You've really been costed by this success you've had, because not only are you here most weeks, you've then got commitments on FGL season wrap-ups, then you want to take part in the quiz, and then we've got to do the draft at some point. So, I mean, you're not even getting paid.
No, it is a pure volunteer role. No, I mean, look, it's... to say that I want to take part in the quiz, it's like... Would a League 2 team really want to take part in the Premier Division? You go, well, it's an experience, but you know you're going to come last, and that's really where
you don't have to.
That.
I'll take the referee, but there's a chance of making history. So
there's no chance. Well, there is literally no chance that I would have any. I just wouldn't. I'm just not in the weeds as much as some of the other boys are. So no, it's not something that I want to win, but it's, I've sat on the sidelines for many years now, and it is fun to watch it and listen to it. But yeah, I just feel like why not just take part?
Why not make my job harder so then I've got to do it all?
Yes, correct. I mean, I had very little value. Sometimes, most of the time, it's you correcting me anyway.
No, that's what I need.
It's a useful check and balance. But yeah, I mean, look, it's something that I historically haven't been involved with in any way, and just had feet up. So yeah, this year or the past few years, it's kind of been more of a active participant, what with the podcast and everything.
Yeah. Well, you won with 859 points to 838 for Parky, so pretty clean victory in the end. The final standings for the Grand Prix was Paper on top with 793, Biff and Adcock tied on 780. But Biff takes the second place by virtue of less transfers being committed. That's the first tie break that we use. Salmon, 778 in fourth, so only 2 points off. Adkins, 765, only 9 games out, so that's what really cost him. We'll get to the day before in just a bit. And then Hall, all 10 games out, 741, but he made 35 points worth of transfers. So that's maybe one of the highest outputs of transfers anyway. But we'll go through that in depth. But that's the official scores. We didn't have them last week. It was looking like it was going that way, but stranger things have happened with last-minute changes and last-minute scores. And what's really one of the strangest things I've ever come across is Fantastic, who developed the day before, 4 days after it released on Steam, shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the announcement. Today, we announced the closure of Fantastic Studio. Unfortunately, the day before has failed financially, and we lack the funds to continue. All income received is being used to pay off debts to our partners. We invested all of our efforts, resources, and man-hours into the development of the day before, which was our first huge game. We really wanted to release new patches to reveal the full potential of the game, but unfortunately, we don't have the funding to continue the work. And it goes on to a bit more. It's important to note that we didn't take any money from the public in the development of Day Before. There were no pre-orders or crowdfunding campaigns, that is true. We worked tirelessly for 5 years, pouring blood, sweat and tears into the game. At the moment, the future of the Day Before and Prop Night, which is one of their other games, is unknown, but the servers will continue to remain operational. We apologise if we didn't meet your expectations. We did everything in our power, but unfortunately we miscalculated our capabilities. Creating games is an incredibly hard and challenging endeavour. We're grateful to the support. We're grateful to everyone who supported us during these difficult years. It's been a fantastic journey over the past 8 years, and it lists off the games that they'd released. I mean, how do you do that? How's 4 days worth of funds and you go, well, that's not going to work. Gone. Clearly, there's something more, not sinister, but there was bigger problems than just the initial kind of sales coming through, because that seems mad to me, considering that the ebb and flow of game sales, whilst they are usually at the front end, you know, you can release a patch or do something later on the line and get another scourge of sales. But I don't think I've ever seen that before. 4 days after the early access release of a game, that it sinks the whole studio, clearly wasn't going to be sustainable unless it really hit big.
Yeah, I don't really know. Most of the time,
who do they owe money to? The mafia? Is that what's going on? Loan sharks? They owe money to the mafia, and they're like, well, we need to pay that off. Sorry.
Well, I don't understand where this money's come from anyway. Like, surely you're better off keeping it a going concern. I mean, they've obviously kept it going as long as they could, but they knew ultimately the numbers weren't. I mean, what sort of numbers would they have had to have made? Like, they know from the product they've made that it's going to flop. Like, they know that.
Yeah.
They knew it because they chucked it out as early access, and then like it just fucking got drilled by opinion, basically saying there's absolutely nothing to this.
Yeah.
And then they went and shut it down.
I'll say there was some strange things going on, I will say, in that it suddenly became... There were people that were like streaming this game who would never have bothered streaming it, but they heard it was bad and thought, oh, we'll just pile on and catch the algorithm here, which I think is a little bit unfair in some ways. It's like you didn't mention one breath of this game, and suddenly, because you're hearing it's a bit of a disaster, it's like, oh, let's go on, make fun of it, which didn't help, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Like it was in terrible state, and I think Salmon even got it, didn't he? He tried to get into it and couldn't even get into any of the servers. I think he Steam logged about 40 minutes, and that was all trying to get into a game, which is an issue when you go for MMOs. But sorry, I did cut you off mid-fault.
No, it's just a really odd thing to do. Like, you see these games where they go, look, this just ain't going to work, cut it. And they go, sorry, it just ain't never going to be a thing. But it's weird that it got to a point where they basically did an announcement, didn't they, a couple of months back, saying, oh, it won't be a full release, it'll be an early access. Yeah. So alarm bells start ringing when they go from version 1.0 to not.
Not for Adkins, apparently. He felt it was prudent to leave that in his team.
I really, really don't get why it's such a bizarre decision. I mean, look, he's done really well this year and picked a lot of good games, and then somehow contrived to arguably pick the worst game of the year and leave it as his deciding game, which is a really strange tactic, and we've called it out many times. But let's be honest, like, no one expected it to be this much of a disaster in any way. So it really is quite something. But I think it's a shame. Evidently, they wanted to be. I mean, we spoke not long ago about State of Decay that you were playing through, and that kind of being a game with faults, but that's okay because it's not trying to be anything more. And I think trying to do something over ambitious in that kind of landscape is really, really hard. And I think they've obviously struggled with it. And they've gone, well, we had an idea and it's just not worked out for us.
Someone at some point is going to get one of these games right. Someone will, because there's seemingly huge demand for it. Like every few years, we seem to get it's always the same trope. It's a zombie survival game that's online, basically. It's like DayZ, but a bit more is what the promise is. And this thing was, before it got taken off Steam the first time, was the most wishlisted game for many, many months. When it came back on, it was the most wishlisted game again. There's clearly an urge for people to get this stuff, and there's money to be made on the table here. Someone's going to come along and eventually get it right and make a really great game, I think. I don't know when that is. I would have said something like The Last of Us Factions might have been it, but we got news this past week that's been cancelled. That's not even going to ship. They've said basically the resources it would take to run a live service game of this scale would mean that our single player output would suffer. And someone went, what about scaling up? I'm making this stuff up now. And obviously they shrugged shoulders and went, nah, it's not going to happen. So that's been cancelled. I would have pegged that as like a high quality go at this, and probably could have been successful. But even I know Naughty Dog aren't known for their online capabilities necessarily, but they are a top tier studio. Even they couldn't figure out a way to do it with Sony's backing. So I'll sit here and say it is going to happen. Maybe it won't, but there is a market there. I just refuse to believe people aren't. Yeah. And they go, "Oh, zombies! I don't want to play it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I get it," but there's tons of people that just want that. They want like a polished, good experience that's online that sort of ticks this fantasy that people have had for probably since The Walking Dead got big.
Yeah, because a lot of games have touched it and tried to do it in different ways with a different focus. I mean, you think about Left 4 Dead and then State of Decay and Walking Dead, and you've got all of these different aspects where you've got story, you've got horde, you've got like all this kind of different stuff, survival, but actually putting it together as a package that does it all to a good standard is demanding. Getting that AI right is so important to make them feel not too robotic, and getting gunplay right, survival mechanics, making it too hard, too easy, too like what's the end game? I think is a really hard part of these sort of games. Like, what are you? Because you can play it, but you need a purpose. Is the purpose to survive? Is the purpose to collect? Is the purpose to thrive? Like what? And I think this is a really hard part. And I think, funnily enough, it's one of the reasons why The Walking Dead in itself was tricky, is because I think they struggled to figure out what was the point of this. Like what is the point? And I think that's a really hard part to making it good. I did, yeah.
You're never going to go back?
Nah. I can't. I gave it more than enough time.
Oh yeah, I did. I watched it all in the end, but it
becomes a cycle, doesn't it? Yeah. And this is what annoys me. It's like zombies.
It's done now. Surely you can go. Well, look, I've got an end. There's an end in sight.
What do you do now? I feel like I'd have to start again, and I ain't doing that.
I left it for about 2 or 3 years, and then caught up and went back.
See, that's the tricky part. I would
it
feel
wasn't
like
worth it. I'm not trying to advocate anyone does that, by the way. I'm just interested to see. A lot of people were the same. I know loads of people that just binned it and went,
I don't like giving them the time. They took the piss. They milked that cow until it was absolutely
They're still milking
dry.
it. There's 3 spin-off shows coming off the back of it, so it ain't really over.
Yeah, this is what annoys me. It's kind of like, I've said to you before, the best thing Ricky Gervais does is go 3 seasons, have that done. Move on. And that's why it's so good. It's because it don't fucking stick around longer than it wants to be there, whereas that did.
Wow. Some are saying you should do that with your stand-up, because that's taken a nosedive in quality. But I guess we'll find out Christmas Day when that new one releases.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, there definitely is a market there for it. People want something to be good, but I really think it's a hard one to do because, again, I think it broadly goes back to purpose. And then the argument is, if you go back to survival, there are things out there already that kind of tick that box, and then you've got the Dead Islands that are there for fun and for kind of sandboxing. So I think it is a tricky one to do. Do people really want to touch it? I'm not too sure.
No, maybe they don't. And you've said all that, which are all challenges, but also these days it's also from the commercially sound element. Like, how do you monetize the game ongoing? That's now a consideration for all this stuff. It's like, how do we do seasons? Do we do what? Because they all want to scrape a bit more off the top, and that's another part of the puzzle that we're never going to be privy to. But that's obviously a consideration as well. It's not just enough for something to be successful for 6 months.
It's got to be ongoing success.
It's got to be a life game, and it's like, well, and I think it's in Sony really finding out the hard way. They've spent millions of dollars developing factions with Naughty Dog as part of this live service push, and then things have been burnt, and they're like, well, that hasn't panned. That's one of the 10 gone. They've got 9 more shots at it, but I think my prediction of they're going to have some right dog shit and bad optical losses is going to come true, because even if they do release any of these games, there's no guarantee they're going to stick. And then it
does make me laugh. Like, I think people think it's easy to do this, it's not. It's really, you look at Fortnite and what Epic have done. Like, they're the only ones that you can say are really, like, I don't know, maybe that's unfair. Maybe Activision are quite good at it with Hearthstone and the way they do stuff, and they've got some good live and ongoing service games.
Depends on what you want out of it, and we will never know. But you could argue that Sea of Thieves is successful because Microsoft still support it as a player base there. They run seasons. They found a way to navigate the early waters of it being quite dead and built something that fans like. But it's not on the scale of Fortnite. And because everyone looks at Fortnite and goes, well, if it ain't that, then it's not successful.
Yeah.
You wonder, actually, do they need to... They don't need to be as successful. They would love it. That's obviously the
end game.
The end game at some point. But I think just accepting that it's good enough to churn some cash and players and trickle in money is enough. But you, as Naughty Dog alluded to, that you have to pay people to support the game indefinitely. And if things aren't going to pan out financially, or you're going to have people coming off other projects, it then becomes a burden, doesn't it? Because you can't just leave it. You can't leave these things. They're not going to be. It's not accepted. So
it's a good point. People always want new content, fresh stuff, and
as soon as the first season released, like when season 2 come in, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I've done the battle pass. Oh, for fuck! What do you mean you've done it? Well, I was sat there for 30 hours straight and did it all, and they're like, for goodness sake.
Have some control. It's like you give a child a bag of sweets and they just go.
Well, I do that.
No. Well,
I did that with my Christmas food as well. I scoffed that down. And I was like, did I enjoy that? Probably not. Inhaled
it's done,
and
that's what matters.
The thing with eating, I just want it done. I want it out. It seems like an inconvenience. My number one thing that I hate at the moment is drying after I've had a shower. Like that time trying to get myself fucking dry, it drives me insane. So I'm like, I can't do anything. I need like a room that I can walk into and it blows hot air on me for like 30 seconds and I walk out and I'm bone dry.
Yeah. I am surprised that we've not found a better way than using the towel. Do you know what I mean? It's such a shit way of drying, especially as a man. Like when you got like body hair, like you just sort of end up rubbing a wet towel over you, hoping it will make you dry. And you think, how is this the best that we've got to?
Yeah.
But pulling it back to games, I do agree. I think it's a tricky thing to do. The thing is, though, in principle, you sit here and you go, oh, but you could do this, you could do that. But it's like, in actuality, is there demand for that? Would that work? Is it enjoyable?
We've seen with Destiny, that's, I think, the lowest player count they've had in years. So they're Bungie apparently the kings of this shit, and even they've got to a point where they're like, hang on, we're struggling here. We documented the troubles they had earlier in the year, but it's like,
they've just released their new latest seasonal thing, and I was talking to Destiny Dave a couple of weeks ago, and he said he literally hates seasonal content and the way that they update it. He said it's just such a shallow way of doing it with no progression links, and I do have to agree, it is a shame, but they're just doing filler until they can get that final shape out.
You ask Destiny Dave what he wants, he'll give you that answer. You ask someone else, they'll want something else from the game. They'll want the seasonal stuff. Like, it's really hard. You cannot please everyone.
I don't mind it being there. I think the big problem with Destiny is they took out, by the looks of it, this kind of like progression-linked grind that people liked. To make it accessible for everyone to basically just come in and play and not have to do all of that. But
again, that's rock and hard plays, isn't it? Because new players are clapping that in, going, "Yeah, we can just jump in." All the OGs are like, well, "What are we doing? If we're not going forward, what are we paying for here?"
You do hit a sort of plateau, where it basically becomes like ticking off titles and doing pointless challenges to do that kind of stuff. Whereas people want to be feeling like, if I do this and there's an end game and I get a reward, but there's no real reward other than getting a clap. And it's like, people don't want to be clapped. They want something to show it off. They want a gun. They want a title. Like, they want more than just what you're giving them. And I think that's the really tricky part. Once you get to a certain point where Destiny is like 10 years down the road or whatever. Yeah. Like, how do you cater to keep new players coming in whilst keeping the elder statesmen happy? And I think that is a really hard balance, because you might have lost to some of those people anyway. So you're accounting for an decreasing pool of people, whilst there's always more and more people that want to play it. Yeah. But yeah, there's no. I think the argument is the only people that seem to be getting it right completely 100% is Fortnite. That's the only game where you can go, they've just seemed to. But there was even a point couple of years back where it took a massive dip because everyone was so sick of it because they kept changing it too much and everyone was just like, I'm done with this. And then over the past 6-12 months, they seem to have really brought people back into it. So it's hard.
It's all ebbs and flows in there, I think, and that's part of the...
It also depends what else is out.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely, yeah. If when GTA 6 comes out, anything close to that is done for a little while.
Yeah. So this is the point. It's kind of not just linked to what the game's doing. It's also what's out at the moment. It's like at the moment you've got the new Warzone out, Fortnite's doing bits. You've got various other things going on, and everyone's competing for your time. And it's like, even if you enjoy a game, you might be giving something else a go for a bit. So there's no guaranteed way of raking in the dough.
No, otherwise we'd all be doing it, wouldn't we? And they'd all be getting it right, and they're not, because it's a difficult thing. Anyway, that's the end of the day before, and I no doubt there'll be other games like this coming forward. This one seemed like it got a big, high-profile push for whatever reason. I think because the trailers showed it off so well, like years ago. But then when you see that, sometimes you just got to look at that and say, that ain't what it's going to be. You can just sniff out bollocks sometimes. And as soon as I saw that, because I remember Adkins showing me the trailer, I went, look at this. And I was like, who are these people, though? Like, you don't really often get something of, like, top-tier quality come out of nowhere. It's sort of earned over iterations of other games. And I was like, I don't know about that. But
there sometimes has to be a baseline of, like, something to work on. Like, and I think sometimes the easiest thing to do is go for the things that look pretty or the things that grab people's attention. And then it's a bit like what happened with No Man's Sky. When you actually get into it, you go, well, this is literally about an inch deep, this water. Like there's a reason why it looks good and why you can do all this stuff is because when you scratch away it, there's nothing else there. And it is quite easy, as you say, once you get into the nuts and bolts of it, to figure it out. And it does annoy me that they don't, they try and do that because it becomes a bit like smoke and mirrors a little bit. And look, everything with a PR or marketing slant is going to want to show the game in the best possible light to get the most attention, the most interest, and all that sort of stuff. But you look at this game and you go, for what? Like, for a shitstorm that's resulted in you having to close the studio 4 days after you released it. So, well done.
Congratulations. Fantastic. The day before is no more. Anyway, this is Idle Game Chat, Dimp Digital's flagship video game podcast. This is the last normal episode of the year. We've got, providing all the scheduling goes well, because it is reliant on people turning up to their commitments. We've got the quiz coming up, which will be, I don't know, maybe 10 days away from whenever people are listening to this. And then we will have, hopefully, a season Fantasy Gaming League where I'll reveal all the interesting data that no one cares about. And we can find out the stats. Are there any new records broken, etc., etc. But that's what's happening here. This is our last normal one. And as we did last year, we did a year in review, I think we called it last year. And what I keep seeing this year is a lot of things are like 2023 wrapped. This wrapped term. I think Spotify started all that nonsense off. So in that vein, we're going to change the name of this episode to. Actually, we won't, because it'll be the game at the end of the show that gets the headline. But this is our wrapped session where we have a little look back at what's taken. He's frowning at that. We have a little look back at
wrapped.
You've not seen this?
No,
so basically, you go on Spotify. And it goes, "Here's your wrapped thing," and it basically shows you what you listened to all year.
Right.
And then so PlayStation do it, Xbox do it, Switch do it.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd change the name, call it Wrapped, this segment. It wraps up the year, didn't it? I think that's what it's aiming at. That's what I've come to. Now, previously, the way we've done things like this is that we have, in fact, only really focused on the platforms, i.e. Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series. And what I have discovered doing that is that you exclude so many of the games, and you put in a reliance on these areas that don't always produce. Let's be frank, they're not always delivering top tier stuff. Obviously, I could sit here and go through every single game that's ever released, and it would take 6 hours, but we're not going to do that. So what I decided to do is just to focus on the sharp end, as I call it. So on OpenCritic, they've got this scoring system, aggregated scores, as we know, blah, 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 blah. They have a rating system where the top 10% basically are given what they call a mighty rating. And that's the top 10% of games scored of all time in their database. So it's kind of changing. At the moment, it's 84 seems to be the cutoff point. So if you're 84 and above, you're in the top 10% of games released. Now, when I did that originally, I scraped all the data off. It came out with 76 games in 2023. I was like, good Lord, what's going on here? On closer inspection, you find out that there are dozens of these games that have like 5 reviews, 6 reviews, 8 reviews. And I was like, hang on a minute. No disrespect, but no one cares. Even the critics aren't be caring. So let's come up with another system. My next way of trying to cut this down was to say, how many reviews in total across all the games have been put out there, and what's the average split by the number of games? And the magic number that came out was, on average, 65 reviews for games. So that includes ones that have got 5 reviews, and there are some in there, like Resident Evil 4, for example, 197 reviews. So you can tell what's popular and what's not. So anything with 65 reviews and above were counted onto this list. And that's the basic data that I've run. And it's only the top 10%, so it's 84s and above, the mighties that are on OpenCritic. So I don't know what to do with all this table I've got here, but I'll just start reading off some tut for you, and maybe I'll ask you some questions. I've got on here what platforms released what, so what appeared on which platform. We've got Xbox Series, PS5, PC, and Switch. They're the 4 that I tracked. Didn't bother with mobile. I'm not dealing with it. What do you think was the platform that had the most amount of games? I should say there are 29 games that made the cut, basically, based on the review cut I did. So there's 29 games there. Which of the 4 platforms do you believe had the most amount of games that scored 84 or above and had 65 reviews at least? So it's what I would call relevant games.
I would say Xbox.
Interesting. And what about the bottom? Who's last in this ranking?
PlayStation.
Interesting. So, top of the grid, PC. 21 of these titles appeared on PC. So, Master Race once again taking championships.
Is this via game? See, this is where it becomes complicated because Game Pass games are also available on PC.
Yep.
And I was thinking more because the sheer amount of stuff that comes onto Game Pass, you throw more modes, more sticks.
This is the sharp end, though, isn't it? We don't deal with shit. It's the top 10%, so only the creme de la creme makes it. Yeah. So one of the criticisms of Game Pass has been they just chuck toots on there.
Shit. Yeah, fair enough.
But there is a lot of good stuff as well. It's not deny that. But PC, I'm not surprised it was PC because most things, as you said, the Xbox stuff all comes to PC day and date, and most things appear on there.
On Steam.
On Steam. So you've got that, or even like Epic now, they're doing some business. Unbelievably, PlayStation is second, so PS5 is second with 20 games. Third is the Xbox Series consoles of 19 games. And the Switch struggling down with 13 games. So a huge drop-off in terms of quantity. Now, again, I'm not overly surprised at that because that Switch don't be running half of these games. So we've always stated that the power will cost it.
If it was average score...
Well, that's... Yeah.
I would have said Nintendo top. But I was thinking the most games with 84 or above with more than 65 reviews, I was like, they don't do volume. They do quality. Or they try to do quality over quantity, I think.
Yeah. It's a bizarre place to be in because actually, if you look at the games that scored over 90, which is kind of another kind of cut-off point we did, 3 of the 9 are Nintendo only. Nintendo published, Nintendo developed. So again, at the sharp end, they've got a good number of games in there. Overall, so by publisher, they're top of the grid. They've got 5 in this list of 29. So although they've got the least amount of quantity,
Yeah.
You could argue the quality based on the amount of games released is up there for them.
Yeah,
Well, that was interesting. That
what I thought.
it kind of flips on its head, doesn't it? But it
Yeah,
shows.
yeah.
I think what we've long said is Nintendo have been really good at supporting the Switch with their own stuff because they kind of have to as a necessity. And I think this proves that point quite well. In that, yes, they've got the least amount of games because some of the third-party stuff can't run or won't run or whatever. But they've looked after their own house basically by saying, "Look, here's 5 games for you, all scoring in that top 10%, which is difficult to do." It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Larian Studios are the next one. They're the big boys that done Baldur's Gate 3, so they're top of the grid with their one game and whatnot. Sony, I think we've said, have had a bit of a feet up year. One game fitting into this list. The Xbox team have got 3 games. So if you wanted to rank it based on output, you'd argue that Sony are last out of that. Because Spider-Man was the only one they released.
Yeah.
And that was that. The other way to look at it is what games scored in the 90 plus. Spider-Man was the only PlayStation game there and was the only one to do that. It's sitting on a 90 at the moment. None of the Xbox stuff made it. So if you want to play that game, you can always do that. Who do you think had the most amount of games released between this again? Top 10%, 65 reviews. That's the criteria. Capcom, Square Enix, EA, or Warner Brothers?
For some reason, I'm thinking Capcom.
You'd be correct. 3 games released in that. 2 of them, in
Resident
fact, are over a
Evil.
90. Yeah, Resident Evil 4, Street Fighter 6. And then there's this other game, which I hadn't even heard of, Ghost Trick Phantom Detective.
Oh, no. I was thinking that fucking dinosaur Twitter.
Oh, yeah, well, that certainly won't be in the top 10% of scoring games, that's for sure. But they've got 3. Square Enix tied them, actually, with 3 as well. So mustn't forget those guys either. They've had a pretty good year. Final Fantasy 16, Octopath Traveler 2. What was the other one? It's got it here in my eyesight. Oh, that Feet Rhythm Final Bar Line, which is in fucking Salmon's team that we laughed at and then got a nice 86. So that's what happens there. What we got? Average score for these top dog games of the 29 is 88. So that's the kind of average for these big title ones.
Yeah.
I don't really have much more to say, really, other than that's what's going on.
I think that's a fair observation. I think that breaks it down quite nicely, to be honest. No huge surprises in there. I always think PC one's a difficult one to gauge as in terms of success because it's kind of just a mishmash of console stuff and PC specific. But
that's kind of the appeal, isn't it?
Yeah, but that is the appeal. But then it's difficult to say how well does it do because it's
the thing is, no one owns the P. Like that's the point. Is that it's a free space where, in theory, everything could appear there.
Yeah,
and does in most cases. It's only really the Nintendo stuff which never. I mean, they would make so much money if they just did a PC.
They must be looking at that, thinking.
Don't need to though. The Switch doing what it's doing. If it craps the bed, Switch 2, maybe they. I don't know.
It won't though, will it?
No, it won't.
That's kind of like where you get locked into it. I guess is you're locked into the hardware. They don't have to develop stuff for all sorts of different compatibility. They just do it for one console, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And that even then, like Pokemon still runs like shit. So there you go. What are they doing?
No, but yeah, I mean, PC is a good space to be in, but like I've said many times, it's not. They go, they'll lose people. They'll lose console players to PC. I'm like, well, if they want to spend 3 times as much for their gaming,
they won't.
And they won't.
People ain't like us.
No, they're not stupid.
It's not a clever thing to do.
No.
It's a stupid thing to do, really.
Although, I'm about to profit slightly off this because Alan Wake 2 had eyes on that. That is currently on the Epic Games launcher, which I know is like sacrilege for some people for daring to use it, but here's the reason why. I can get Alan Wake 2 on that Epic store for £21.47. Or I can get the deluxe edition, which comes with 2 expansions for £29.47 because they're running a discount on the game. They're also running an extra 33% if you spend over 12 quid. And this is where you can start to build some money back. I mean, it's chipping away over time. But that game on the PlayStation Store is 50 quid.
Yeah.
And then 60 quid for the deluxe version of it. So basically, it's half price offer being touted here.
Yeah.
A matter of a couple of months after release, which is perfect timing for me because I've just finished up another game.
Yeah.
But then again, people say I'm a dog for using the Epic Games Store because they're just...
Fuck 'em.
Well...
I don't care. I've got it all. I've got the EA launcher, I've got the Epic launcher, I've got Steam, I've got Xbox. I'll take everything I can and play it where it's cheapest.
Yeah.
Because I spent a fucking fortune on this thing, so I'm not doing it. It makes no bloody difference.
No, in most games it doesn't. No.
I quite like actually the Epic Store as well.
Like, don't say that.
Well, I'll fucking bite them, won't I? I'll tell them what the story is. Like, it's cleaner and it's easier to use than Steam by far. It is.
Destiny 2 Legacy Edition being handed out for free.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So you can play all that for now on that if you really want to go at it. If you want 100 hours of wasteful content, then it's for nothing.
Oh dear. What's been your view on this year in terms of the games? Like, I know I there's been some like Baldur's Gate 3 Tears of the Kingdom I've not played. It's the 2 highest scoring games. Most years I would have played that. I'd have gone in for those and absolutely taken titles, but I haven't. I've just enjoyed getting on with what I've wanted to do, which is sometimes older games, sometimes replaying, etc., etc. But for you, who sort of straddles the line between maybe 1 or 2 big releases a year, live service, a flavour of that, and I don't know what else you're up to, but you're always chopping and changing, moving around. Did 2023 provide you with much new stuff for either to play immediately or actually more likely, I'll get to that later on in the year or another year for whatever reason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to always get conflated between what I've played this year and what I haven't. I don't keep a log of it.
Well,
but I'm pretty sure that I finished off God of War this year, early this year, I think. Did I have Harry Potter this year?
Yep.
So I had that. So this is where it gets complicated. I'm like, right, did I do this year? So I kind of feel like I've had 2 big single player experiences, and then I think I've played some stuff in the middle, Hi-Fi Rush and a few other bits. And then I guess I've had Warzones and Rocket Leagues and trying to dabble in a bit of Destiny and, basically trying to get into my PC stuff since I bought it in kind of like Q4. And I've obviously caught up on both Spider-Man. I've deliberately not done the latest Spider-Man 2 because I don't want to rush it because I'm fucking done with it. So I guess my thought on gaming these days is to play stuff as and when I want to. And that's largely what I've done. Like, I don't often feel time pressure to do stuff, but I'm trying to think on what my gaming strategy is next year because I've still got stuff on the Switch I want to get to.
Well, that Switch 2's lurking.
Well, this is kind of where I'm at with it. I fucking hate playing things on that console. I really do resent it. So I want to play, like, I've got Pokemon for my birthday and I still haven't even put that in.
Wow.
So I don't know. I'm going to see. I'm off work for 3 weeks now as well. So I'm going to kind of see where that kind of takes me and see what I get the itch to play. But I'm definitely, like, I have to be honest, I'm really enjoying my PC stuff at the minute. Like, it's playing with a mouse and keyboard again is literally just
I was told controllers are still going to get used mostly, but
I thought they would, but I have really got into, and I think I spent a lot of money on making sure that I got a good mouse and keyboard, more than I needed to and more than I should have done. Yeah. But I was like, if I want to get a taste for this, I'm going to try and get a taste at the top tier and see where it takes me. And I've really fucking enjoyed it. And playing first-person shooters, like this. I was even playing Rocket Racing the other day with a mouse and keyboard, and I was like, well, does this really need do I need to connect a controller to this to do it, or is some of this stuff just better? So I'm really just trying to experiment with it and see where it kind of takes me, and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I don't ever put myself under pressure to play stuff. I know you like to have a set
Got a roadmap here.
sort of roadmap, whereas I'm just a bit like, I'll play what I want when I want, and I'll see where that kind of takes me.
That's the way to do it, really. I mean, the roadmap is just a guide for me. I haven't stuck to it, and my original roadmap's been completely bastardised, and it hasn't gone to plan at all. But generally, the Baldur's Gate 3 is the big one for me that I want to play, but because it's such a mammoth, it's like really difficult to find a slot for it. And I look into like over this period, I'm going to get that Alan Wake 2 for sure, play that on the PC, which I'm kind of I'd rather not, because it'd be nice to play it on this TV. Now I could plug my PC into that, but will it run it at the required, resolution to take advantage of that? I don't know. Probably would. It probably would be better on PC anyway. But there's always that concern that it won't run well, or something will happen, and I'll be sitting there with frame counters on trying to fuck up. Like, I do just like switching it onto a performance mode and then going, well, that's whatever it is, it's going to be. I haven't got to worry about this variation. But sometimes when the offer and the deal is that good, you have to just concede and say, and it's going to look better on this thing anyway, because I'll be able to put the ray tracing on. It'll have DLS. Like, there's actually more advantages to it. But I do like my comfort of just playing on a console now and again. But
I am waiting for that, because obviously I went with silly stats really, and at the moment I can just whack everything up to highest, and it literally makes no difference. But there will come a time, quicker than I think, where concessions will have to be made, and we'll have to start thinking about this sort of stuff. And I think that is when it becomes more of a consideration, because it's like I can play Destiny on more frames than my screen will allow, which is just ridiculous. But there will come a time when I play games when that won't be a possibility, and you have to fine tune the middle ground to get it how you want. But I know what you mean. There is something really satisfying about downloading a game and pressing play, and just that's it. You can choose, as you say, you can choose. I remember even in Harry Potter, there was more options than I would have liked in that. And I just want you to
saying that.
Yeah, and I'll just sort of like, look, I don't want this. This isn't what I've come here for. I've come here for, do you want it to look good, or do you want it to run well? That's all I need. Ideally, I'll have both, but very rarely do you get it.
No. Well, that's the advantage of the PC, is you can leverage the power and get both if you...
absolutely. And to be honest, I would probably, if I went back and played Harry Potter now, I'd probably do it on PC for both.
Right, that's interesting.
Because it did look fucking good. Like, it has to be said, but I just can't have anything less than 60 frames. It hurts me.
Let me just do as an experiment now, again, just to annoy people that don't like Epic, because that's on offer as well, Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah, you can get that game for £20 on the Epic Game Store as we speak.
I mean, it's mad, isn't it? And this is, I mean, look, the simple fact is it's a long road to paying these PCs off, right? It's definitely not a financial decision that you want to make, but you can get games cheaper, on there. Like, that is one of the benefits of it, is that there's sales and things going on all the time.
Yes.
But it's definitely, like, financially, it's a completely ill-advised thing to do. But it is a slight boon, is that once you're there, you don't have to always pay, 50 quid for a game.
No, that's the thing. You should show a bit of patience. You can take titles, but...
Have you played Hogwarts?
No, I haven't. To be honest, I know Adkins has got it, so it's on that. It'll just be borrowed at some point. He won't say. He might say no, but he hasn't.
I've already got that Spider-Man 2 lined up for him.
Right?
So
yeah,
I'll be having that.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. It's as we say,
get Windows cleaned. Get Spider-Man delivered.
That's exactly what should be happening for the rates that are being charged anyway. Yeah. But yeah, I really wanted to. But I mean, Tears of the Kingdom. I think I'm just like, well, I'll wait for the next Switch and see. Hopefully, whether there's
that, Eva. That's mad.
I didn't really like Breath. I liked Breath of the Wild, but I didn't love it.
You got annoyed at all the fawning, didn't you?
Well, it was just ridiculous. I mean, I was glad to see that Tears of the Kingdom didn't win the Game Awards this year, just to give them a kick up the arse, because I was like, come on, pull your finger out your arse.
Not great, is what he's saying.
Yeah. And look, Baldur's Gate 3, I might play that and go, fuck me, what are they doing here? But at least it's something different, like it's very different to what I'd perhaps normally play. So that's in there, but it's such a big game that I'm trying to find a slot for it, and it's like, well, it's not happening because we've got Persona 3 Reloaded coming early February next year. End of February is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is going to be another monster. So it's probably going to be not till spring next year I'll get to that. Tears of the Kingdom will wait until Nintendo Switch 2 or Super Switch, whatever we're calling that, comes out, and hopefully there'll be a enhanced version of that. Might not be, it might have been a waste of time. Played Metroid Prime Remastered. Resident Evil 4, played that, it was good. Street Fighter 6, not really my jam. Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And that's the one where, to be honest, that should have just been borrowed and played by now, because it's not a big bloater of a game.
Yeah.
So that might be one. That might be a nice January game if I do finish off Alan Wake 2 quicker than what I was anticipating.
Thinking about getting that to play, going to Centre Parks in January, and I'm thinking that'd be quite a good one as a 4-player, just to have and do there. But yeah, I agree that should have been bought and done by now. It's one that I keep thinking I need to get, but tricky, isn't it? Because this is a blessing and a curse having all of these things available, because it's great because you can play what you want, but then trying to figure out what to play when and where is fucking hard.
Yeah, it becomes a job in itself, which is not ideal. Dave the Diver, I've got that on my Steam wish list. One day I'll get to that. Looks interesting. Spider-Man 2.
I was also going to say, Baldur's Gate
is
still full price, £50 on the Steam store, which is annoying me. I mean, look, there's absolutely no reason why that should come on sale. But for some reason in my mind, I want to play that, but I don't want to pay £50 for it.
No.
Again, this arrogance that comes with being on PC.
I'm not paying. Yeah, I mean, it's what I tend to do. I mean, Adkins has bought that on Steam, so in theory, we can do a Steam share, and it can be all sorted out that way. So that's obviously potential. That is an advantage of Steam for sure. But yeah, I think I got into the state where if I don't get it on release date, it has to be on a sale.
Yeah,
because all you're paying for is earlier access to the game at this rate. Yeah, like everything comes down in price, and there's sales that go on. Like if you ain't there day in day, I think, well, I'm not paying the top whack, because that's not how it works. It's what happened with Alan Wake 2. I was like, I'll wait for a sale on the consoles, or I didn't expect it to come onto PC so cheap to be so appealing, so that wasn't part of the plan. But I'll take it absolutely. Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. I want to play the whole game for that, so that's on the roadmap somewhere. Dead Space we got through. Alan Wake 2 we're going to get through. Sea of Stars, that's a freebie actually on that PlayStation Plus subscription, but I ain't got time for that, unfortunately. That's another one to get later down. Hi-Fi Rush, which we both didn't actually like that much, but scored. That in fact was Xbox's top scoring game with an 89 in the end. Diablo 4. I mean, that's been just missed and lost in the shuffle for us. Pikmin 4. I need to play Pikmin 1 through 3, so that can be done at some point. Final Fantasy 16. Enjoyed that. Cocoon. Enjoyed that. Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. Don't know what we're talking about. Feet Rhythm Final Bar Line. That's not going to get played. It's a rhythm game. Armored Core 6. Fires of Rubicon. From Software. Lurking. Too scared to play that. Octopath Traveler 2. One day. Starfield. That's what people are saying is the big loser of all this. Just been shunned by the Dimp community other than Adkins, and he couldn't even finish it because of a bug. I mean, that was the head turn. That was the generational title. What happened? I mean, you weren't convinced throughout the whole thing. You were like, ain't.
No, I wasn't. I always thought it was just going to be something that people hyped up, and I know it's. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it was ever a day one, and it doesn't look like my sort of thing. I mean, look, it looks worth playing at the right price, and if you're on Game Pass, it's like, why not? But
I've just uninstalled it the other day actually because it was taking up 100 gig.
I've just uninstalled it.
Well, it weren't going to get played this because the other thing I've seen they're adding maps to they're adding all these features and parts that people have complained about essentially. So I'm like, well, again, I may as well wait a little bit and see what the future holds. There's no rush to get through that big game because again, that's not going to be a simple one. Just Sand, which was developed by Don't Nod and published by them, so it's a self-published game. Again, that's been marked on a radar just to have a look into because I wasn't aware of that. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now, seemed like that was a bit of a good but bad because of the performance issues it had at release. Had Biff saying it shouldn't have left the factory in that state. He was struggling with all sorts of problems, but nowadays worth going back and playing, so that's on my list as well. Super Mario RPG. Not likely. Blasphemous 2, which I know Evan likes and loves actually. Love the first one of that. Hogwarts Legacy makes the cut on these top games. Mortal Kombat 1, and then finally Forza Motorsport.
There is.
That's the list of games, and that's not getting played.
Nope.
MK's not getting played because it's a fighting game and I don't really gel with them. Hogwarts Legacy is on the list, but again, not a quick one, is it? You sat through it all and had to blast through it.
No, I mean, it's not too bad, but it's longer than I thought it was going to be in a weird kind of way. And I lengthened it out. Down? Yeah. There were some bits where I was like, I ain't going back to do that. But the bits that seemed feasible to go and get, like collectible bits. And look, if you like Harry Potter, it's a great world to be in. Like they've really executed that brilliantly. But sometimes you have to draw the line and get onto other stuff.
Yeah, you can't.
I think that's when I got snarled up with God of War when I was around that, and I was like, right.
Well, they're releasing DLC for free, saying "Come back to us." Little epilogue, they're saying, but it's a fucking roguelite, which are never easy. I've downloaded it, but I'm scared to start because they can be a pain in the arse. They get them wrong. They're really annoying, those sort of style of games. I played Hades. Yes. Which is easily the best iteration of that style I've seen because the narrative's linked into the retrying and the failing. Like the whole narrative's built around that. I just don't see that being the case with this.
No, you just get fucked off.
But they keep saying things like conclude Kratos' story. I'm like, why are you saying things like that to me?
Why are you dragging me in?
Yeah. But again, that would be a good thing to have because it's free. That would be a good thing to fill a gap at some point. But they won't let things go, will they? Everything's got to be a forever game. Can't just allow you just to pay for the game and then leave it for the next entry. It's
Come back.
Well, we'll see. Won't
Look, more hours.
Here's the publishers in order. Nintendo, as I said, was top. Capcom, Square Enix. I've bundled Bethesda and Xbox Game Studios together because they're all owned by Microsoft now. But they still publish under Bethesda Softworks, like the Bethesda. It's a bit confusing, but that's a first party Xbox, I call them. So they were next. EA, Warner Brothers, Annapurna, Bandai Namco Entertainment, Blizzard Entertainment, CD Projekt, Don't Nod self-published, Epic Games, who published Alan Wake, Larian Studios self-published, Mint Rocket self-published, Sabotage Studio self-published. SIE or Sony or PlayStation, whatever you want to call them, with Spider-Man. And then Team 17, who published Blasphemous. So they are the top publishers for the year. Looking back at Sony, they've released one game. They chucked out their PS5 hardware to it and this PlayStation Portal. So they were clearly distracted in some way. But I look at next year and I think, what's next? We've got Helldivers, which is not going to be... It ain't what they normally do. It's not a big story-based game. It's a multiplayer-focused title, which is something different, I guess, but still not going to tick necessarily my box. Final Fantasy Rebirth, which they're not making. They're just paying to not have it on other platforms, so don't really count that. Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Well, it's a remaster, so get what you can out of that. But I don't know. I look forward at what they've got on the slate. I'm like, well, where's the next big one? Because they've slowly but surely just been trickling out. They've just been Slugville, haven't they? Especially this year.
Yeah,
is it cause for concern?
I think it might just be a bit of a slow year. I mean, look, it's really hard. I think we've spoken about this a few times in the pod, where planning releases and ensuring that there's kind of like this constant flow of games is sometimes a tricky thing to do. And I think this is probably part of the reason why they want some live service stuff actively out there, is because that kind of feels, well, they do, but that's part of the reason why they want it out there, because it's kind of like filler for other stuff. And, I think
so rather than there being a game release, they can say it's season 2 of Helldivers.
They'll do stuff like that. That's what they'll do. And people want it. This isn't. They do. They want it.
We'll see. We'll see.
If they get it right, they want it. Yeah. People love seasons and game like live service, but if it's done right,
there ain't enough room for it all. It's all going to fucking burst in one day.
You're right. There ain't enough room for it all. There absolutely isn't. But they'll continue to do it. So that's the world we live in. Yeah. Get used to it. But yeah, I think they seem to be as good as a safe pair of hands as they can be for releasing good single player games, which is exact opposite of what Xbox are and Microsoft. Cannot be trusted.
They got 3 in this list.
No, I'm not having it. i5 Rush was garbage. No, it wasn't garbage. It wasn't as good as all the fucking fawning was made. That Forza. Again. What are we doing? When you look at that, like, not good enough. So, yeah, I think, look, Nintendo released good first party content. I think Sony tend to as well, but they've just had a quiet year with just sped-ins coming out. I think they'll be back with stuff for sure.
Well, I hope so.
Don't be asking for it, because you ain't got enough time to play the stuff you want to play already. So they're doing you a favour, really, in terms of quietening out the roadmap a little bit for you.
True, but it'll always be there one day if I can go back to it. I don't know. I think there might be a bit of a. I think 2024 they might get really stomped on. I mean, there'll be. I just think Xbox have. I keep saying this, but at some point they have to fucking get it right, consistently. And 2024 might be the year. Hellblade.
The day when I get Gears of War Trilogy remastered, that'll be the day when I go, right, we're now finally getting back to an even keel. When they start doing stuff, well, this is what I mean. Once they start doing stuff that makes sense, we'll go, right, maybe they're actually serious about fucking making some good games then.
Well, they've got 3 of the sharp end here. That's what he says. This cuts through all the bollocks and gives you the raw stats.
It gives... There's stats... There's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. And I'll tell you what, those 3 games being there are a fucking lie. But they're not a lie. The problem is there's just no prestige in it, is there, really? Like, Starfield ultimately was a flop for most people. It was, wasn't it? It's not.
Well, it depends what you wanted. If you wanted a 96 like generational game, then I know, I agree. It was.
That's what people wanted, and that's what the expectation was. So they haven't met the bar with that. Yes, they've got the best driving game available at the moment, or I say best sort of arcade sim available at the moment. Like, whoop-de-doo. Like, look, this is it. You ain't going to get the awards for it. So you'll be releasing a good game, and you'll get a pat on the back, but you don't get the plaudits. Pat on the back's the most you get. Then Hi-Fi Rush only got what it got. I'm adamant it only got what it got because it was a shadow drop, and everyone.
Yeah, probably helped.
And it was all right. If you played the first 4 hours, you don't need to replay fucking remaining 8 or whatever it was. That'd be my advice.
That's true. Anyway, stop kicking Xbox. They've had the best year they've had in years. I mean, we didn't talk about the stains because I just didn't want to. I mean, Redfall obviously was a bad one, and there was plenty of other bad games. That Kong Skull Island game. There was Lord of the Rings Gollum, which was another disgrace.
Oh God, yeah.
There's a Flashback 2, which is awful. That Walking Dead Destiny's awful. So as much as we've clapped in all the good and great stuff here, there's been, I think, an unusual number of shite that's managed to make its way onto the market and, score so badly. So it's been a great year overall, though. I think. I mean, this is just, as I said, this is just the top 10% with the.
There's been a lot of good games. There's been a lot of good games.
Tons.
There's, and I think that lends to some of the scores in the Grand Prix and the FGL, really, because, I just don't think there's been many years where there's been this many good games. Like, all right, we've got a couple of great ones, but there's been a lot of good games. Like, even if you go plus, 70, scored 70 plus, like there's a lot of games in that pool, and I think that's a good thing. Like, we're getting largely more good games, but the thing is, everyone still wants those generational ones, which are hard to come by.
Yeah, not always going to get them, unfortunately, but that's the way of the world. Well, I think that's it. That's 2023 wrapped for gaming. And we'll close out the last normal episode with... How about this? Horizon Forbidden West, The Burning Shores. DLC being touted and chucked out there. So I played through that, give you my opinion of that particular one. Got Jim on the phone saying, well, you said we only released Spider-Man, we did Burning Shores as well. I went, yeah, well, it's not the same, is it? Not the same, Jim. It didn't get in the top 10% either, so fail for you on that particular one. But that's what's coming next. I'll be giving my opinion of that. I said we'll be back with some special episodes over the coming weeks. Don't know what the exact schedule is. Normally Fridays they release, so look forward to the quiz, look forward to the end of season FGL recap, and then we'll be back into it next year, probably with Gaming's Most Wanted to kick things off. Logan will be on a break then, so you'll get a week or so off, and then back into the fully fledged normal shit. That'll be that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Horizon Forbidden West, Burning Shores. We'll see you on the other side. Sorry, I couldn't find the stop recording button. Goodbye.
Welcome to the Dimp digital voicemail service. Please leave a message after the tone.
Alright, Biff here. So, Resident Evil 4 done. Never played the original, just played the remake. I thought it was really, really good. I thought the dialogue was a bit corny in places, like some of the one-liners felt really dated, so I don't know if it was the original sort of dialogue and conversations, and if, they might be showing their age a little bit. But the actual combat and the game and the story, I thought was very good. It's just, I don't know, his old American boss that was like a leader of an army or something. He looked like the fella from Street Fighter. I think his name's Ghoul or something. It's like the Japanese or Capcom have this like image about how, I don't know, the US Marines look, and it's like crew cut hair, blonde, combat trousers, vest, always. But yeah, I did enjoy the game apart from that little side bit. Give it a gold. Decent overall. Graphics look good, I thought, and the combat was good. Again, because I've not played the original, I don't know if they've updated the combat. I imagine they would have done because, well, maybe not. I don't know. But overall, decent. Give it a gold. And I've enjoyed playing it.
Here we are then, back with some game impressions. To close out this edition of Idle Game Chat, got Apps and Logan here. I'm once again here to reveal some thoughts on some DLC actually. Some people call this stuff expansions, but they've referred to it as DLC in the store page. So I've given a spoiler away for the store page there, but I don't feel so bad calling it DLC. It seems more chuck away to me. I don't know how you feel about that. When you hear expansion, you think, cool. But
the world don't normally expand.
Well, they're trying to call that fucking Division thing we've been playing expansion territory, and I'm like, well, using the first map from the first game.
Well, the thing is, that one's slightly different because even in the one that we've been playing through lately, they cart you off, didn't they? And you're not even. So I don't.
You're held hostage there till you finish the job. You can't even get back. Unbelievable.
That is correct. I like the term additional content or something like that. So download is fine because you ain't buying it in the shops, are you? So you are downloading the content.
But why not? Why not have a little waste of plastic case?
Environment, innit?
Well,
we're ESG over here at Dimp Digital. We're all about environmental. Well, I was going to say, and I was like, that's disingenuous. Yeah. I think I don't really like expansion packs and things like that. does annoy me. Just call it downloadable content or additional content or something like that. Is where I sit with it. So Horizon Forbidden West DLC. What are we doing here?
Well, yeah, it's called The Burning Shores, this DLC.
Yeah.
I'll do a store page, shall I?
Yeah.
Just to set us straight. Travel beyond the Forbidden West as Aloy's story continues. Encounter new machines and a compelling new story. South of the Tanak clanlands, millennia of volcanic eruptions and violent seismic activity has carved the ruins of Los Angeles into a treacherous... Oh my God, what word is that? Archipelago. Go on.
Archipelago.
Wait, I've never even seen that word before. I'm assuming it means environment or something. Why don't they just put that?
The only reason I know that is because I've watched a lot of David Attenborough over the years, and he likes to use that word.
No, cut that out of the language. Experience the next chapter of Forbidden West as Aloy pursues a sinister new threat to the planet hidden among these dangerous, untamed wilds. The Burning Shores DLC contains additional content for Horizon Forbidden West, including new characters and experience in a stunning yet hazardous new area. To enter the Burning Shores, you must complete the main quest. I won't mention the main quest name that's mentioned there. In the PS5 version of Horizon Forbidden West, following the main quest, the player will receive a call over Aloy's focus, beginning the DLC. Interesting, that's in the overview, that detail. And I suppose it best be in there because this is not available on the PS4 version of Forbidden West. And like it says, you have to have finished the main quest to access it, which is uncommon. Usually the game will just give you the option to skip straight to that point and play it as a separate part of the game. And if you haven't got a save point, they just sort of give you a stock character with various levels and abilities and whatnot. But no, you have to have finished the main game, and it's on PS5. So they really are filtering out people that haven't finished the game or got it on PS5, which I think is an interesting perspective and an interesting way to go, because so often we see these companies trying to bleed every last pound and penny out of people, whereas here they're artificially putting up walls saying, well, you can play it if you haven't got the PS5 version or if you finished the main game. Good or bad?
Who is playing DLC without finishing the main game?
I don't know.
Who's doing that? That is the equivalent to me of not finishing your dinner and having afters.
Yeah. Well, you might just want the afters so much because you prefer the afters.
Or you've got on your plate, you got your dinner, and then
this is the same dinner, I'd argue.
So rather than doing that, you go out for seconds. You go, well, why not just eating what's in front of you? Why are you going out for the seconds?
If you're at an all-you-can-eat buffet, you're fine because you want to try and maximise. You want fresh, because that stuff's lukewarm at best anyway. So once you've had it on your plate a few minutes, it'll be stone cold. So you may just want to replenish it. But yeah, I mean, you're logically, no one should be interested unless they finish the main game. I don't see why you'd be like, I'll do the DLC. There's almost zero logic to that. The PS5 only is clearly a technical thing. I mean, having played it, I can see it to a certain extent, but it doesn't do anything that you kind of go, wow. But
it's not that radical that you
no,
think
but I'm
obvious.
almost certain they wanted to do certain things and thought we could backport this, but it's going to take forever. And this game came out. This DLC came out 14 months after the main game.
Yeah,
that's just too long.
Yeah,
like I mentioned.
That's why, as I said to you at the top of it here again, what are we doing here?
I mean, look, I played it late. This DLC, good 6 or so months after the DLC came out. Of all the DLCs I've played over the last few weeks and months, and over my time in playing I found this the hardest
ever.
Well, in my head, this is going to be the easiest because it's just an open world action RPG. Okay, the survival horror game, of the Callisto Protocol and the Final Transmission, that was going to be the real devastator. I was never going to be able to do that. But this should have been easy pickings, and it wasn't. It was hard because what I forgot was just how complex the game is. You've got
everything.
You've got 12 different categories of weapons, which you don't use all of them. You can only put 4 to 6 on your sort of loadout at a time. Each of those types of weapons have probably got 6 or so variations with different elemental damage, non-elemental damage. You've got the elemental damage thing to factor in, which is there's probably half a dozen of those. Then you've got valor skills, which I'd forgotten about completely, which are like super. You activate it after you've built up a certain amount of momentum, and it gives you a power up or a buff. There's fucking 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 of those to choose from. You've got 6 skill trees that you've been maxing out through 100 odd hours of the game. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I cannot remember how to play this game. And this was a game I got really good at, as in, just look at the machine. I was like, right, that one's weak to electric. Bang, knock that canister off, cause a chain reaction, fucking sting them with the fireball. And then I just knew how to just devastate. All gone. All that knowledge built up and gone. So the people were saying, well, you left it too long to play the DLC. My argument is that my skills and knowledge eroded probably 3 months after the game came out, 3 to 6 months. The fact that this came 14 months after the main game, it wouldn't have mattered. If I played this in April 2023 when it came out, I'd have been in the same boat. Maybe I lost an extra 5%, but the damage had been done.
Yeah, the majority had already gone. Like, it is hard, I think, to define what an optimum time frame is for DLC. I think somewhere...
I can tell you 14 months is not it. I can say that safely.
I would say somewhere between 3 and 6 months. I think anything over 6
You're
months
asking
is
trouble.
getting... Yeah, that's my opinion, because I've played so many different things between that time that my brain's already overwritten that information. So
this was
if it's
super
before
tough.
3 months, you go, fucking hell, I've just done 120 hours in this one, we're doing it again.
There is that, and that's when you get into the dangerous period of why couldn't that have been in the main game if it's too close. I think companies have been burnt so many times by releasing stuff shortly after the main game. They're like, well, you're just carving the game up and which is kind of a fair comment. But I said this when I was talking to Adcock about the Resident Evil 4 DLC. I think I'd almost prefer that, though. I'm like, okay, that's how you're doing it. At least I can dive into this extra content shortly afterwards. And the annoying thing about this whole situation is nowadays we've got the complete edition of Forbidden West, that if I was patient enough, if I'd waited 18 months, I could have just got that and it would have flowed nicely into it. I'd have been well up to speed. The good news is I did eventually get there, but it took some time.
Yeah.
And the game doesn't really, or the DLC I should say, doesn't... I thought it might give me a bit of a slow start and just like put me in situations and scenarios just to get my foot in again, but no, it just sort of chucked you in there, and I was really struggling from the outset, and perhaps in the last third of the game I felt competent, but never was I get close to how I was in the main game. So because it's DLC and because it's after the main quest it's set, the difficulties at the higher end, because the levels of the machines, the level of the enemies is all higher. So that's another thing that cost me, because everything was more resistant. I couldn't just afford to get away with complacency or poorness. I was getting put down so many times, but I got through it. But definitely was a souring experience, because I don't know. I mean, this took me about 10 hours to do the main quest, along with some of the side stuff that was on my path. I've gone back afterwards and done a few extra bits, and it's probably another 5 hours there. So 15 hours is probably your top. So it's quite meaty in that sense. Perhaps that's why it took 14 months, but I don't know. I've just got to sort this out, because I've just noticed it in the sort of quick fire DLC raid I did. I just noticed a struggle with all of them in varying degrees. And unbelievably, the Callisto Protocol was the one I had the least amount of trouble with, which is just a shambles. That's not how I had it pegged at all. That was going to be the hardest one. This was going to be the nice easy one. Saved it to the back end. I was like, right, I'll just enjoy this and just walk through the machines. Nope. I was absolutely struggling. Poor old Aloy going from Master Hunter to an absolute chump, just from flying across the fucking lake to go and visit Los Angeles.
Tricky, innit? If they're going to release it that late, then you do need to get the
Optional.
Things in that deal. Well,
do you want an optional tutorial for 20 minutes? Yes, please.
Yeah.
If not,
do you want a
fine.
refresher?
Yeah.
because you ain't sat on this for 18 months, possibly.
Yes. No.
Yeah, it's tricky, but I definitely prefer them in that sort of 3 to 6 month window for sure.
Yeah.
So I think the initial kicking out the way. Do you want to read the store page?
I've read it.
Have you?
Yeah.
Good Lord. I'm losing my marbles. Right. Okay. So moving on then.
That's when I got tangled up by Attenborough's word, didn't I?
Flagship.
Okay, well. I don't know if we can claim that anymore.
So I'm going to assume in this then that it's basically more of the same in terms of if you move over to that Los Angeles piece, you've alluded to it already in terms of the fact that it's, high level machines and all that kind of good stuff. But do you feel like that shift in environment was enough? Or did it feel a little bit like reskinned or rehashed? Did it feel new?
Yes. So the way the DLC is structured, I cannot not talk about this part of the main game. So there's a part in the main game that I'm going to reveal. It's not story based really. It's just something you can unlock, and it completely transforms the way you get around. So if you've not played the main game and you're listening to this and you don't want to know what that is, I mean, they give it away fucking early because it's in one of the fucking quests. you can't do it till you've unlocked it. I thought it was playing with words, but it meant literally what it meant when I read it, and it went back to it finally. But you own the ability to fly the flying machines in the Forbidden West towards the back end. So you go from this experience where the whole map is ground based in Forbidden West. It's one big landmass. San Francisco's there over a little body of water, so that's where you'd use it if you were just going back and forth. I actually got on as soon as I could fly. I'm flying everywhere now. It saves so much time.
Yeah.
It was like a fucking revelation to me. But what I say is that the Forbidden West had a lot more on the ground mass. It was just there was no separation of water, rather than like I mentioned with San Francisco. So you spent the vast majority of that game, or over half of it at least, traveling on foot. That's how you discover things. LA, well, they mentioned there's been an absolute shithole of volcanoes and eruptions and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of water, and then lots of probably a dozen or so islands. So you kind of need to fly to get from interesting part to interesting part. I mean, it's not a huge map. It's big enough, don't get me wrong, but compared to the main map, it's not a huge map. But they've clearly thought, right, we know each player's going to have this ability to use the flying machines. Let's incorporate that way of getting around and make it make sense. So it felt very different in the fact that you kind of had to fly around. Now, they do give you a little skiff and a boat to drive around in if you want to do that, if you want to do a little bit of like island hopping. But you're better off just calling the fucking bird in and just flying over and jumping out and gliding down. It takes half the time, and you're not going to miss anything going over bodies of water. So just from the locale and the way it's designed, it was definitely felt a lot different. And they absolutely were aware that you're going to spend a lot of time in the air because some of the tombs and the ruins that you can go in, you can only access by using your flying machine to like rip off a part of the hatch or something. Like they've definitely thought about you're going to be looking from a top down. Let's try and make these landmark areas appealing so that you can land on top of the building and perhaps work your way down the building rather than always starting at the bottom and walking up, which is how it was in the main game. So yeah, it felt fundamentally different just in terms of how the map was laid out. You kind of were forced to use the flying machine a lot more, even if you didn't. Combat's the same. There's new machines, a handful of new machines there that you will have varying degrees of success against depending on how they operate. And there's a couple of new weapons, like new actual weapon types, which are cool that you can unlock. And there's also variations on existing weapons and stronger outfits and whatnot that you can do. So the bones of it's very, very similar, but the change in the locale definitely you could see was like, okay, we know people are going to be flying. Let's try and make it interesting from that perspective, which I think they kind of nailed. It's not without some issues in that it feels like you are just flying over things rather than exploring. And this is going to be a problem for the third game. I don't know how they're going to stop you from just ignoring a lot of activities. Well, I've got an idea of how they might do that, and they've shown in the very early game. In fact, there's a tower that's up that shoots things out of the sky. So your flying machine, you have to go and kill the tower to unlock. Well, not unlock, but allow you to use your flying machine again. So I suspect in the third game you'll have almost like old school. You know, you go and unlock a tower, and then you can fly in that area. But I don't know how that's going to play with people. I think they're going to struggle to balance. It's kind of like Pandora's box. They've opened up this new traversal mechanic which cuts down on time, but how do you make the game still engaging on the ground? Because so much of what you spend in Forbidden West is on the ground, exploring and finding these small little secret areas that you just can't do that when you're in the air. So no, and you can take it away and say you haven't got your flying machine. Then people are like, "Oi,
where's that gone?
Where's
I
that
want
gone?"
it back. Yeah, you've kind of got something good that you want to retain, but you don't also lose the.
Almost should have held it back for the third and
explore.
final game. Assuming the third one is the final game, then it would have made sense to introduce it then. But they had it ready to go, introduced it here, and now it's going to be a case of, you know, taking it away or nerfing it in some way where you can't just use it all the time. Or maybe they just say go at it and hope people don't just go point to point. But I know they will.
Yeah, well,
people fast travel all over the place in these games anyway, so that let's not pretend like me flying everywhere is somehow diluting the game. We've got people just clicking in menus and darting from one side of the fucking land to the other. So, yeah, and perhaps it's not a big issue at all.
I think for you these things do become issues, but for other people they're less of a concern. They'd rather have these. Like, are people that interested broadly about exploring the worlds, or are they just want to tick off the game and do the story bits? So I think, you know, there's probably more people that want to explore it than I think, but
most are ticking boxes, aren't they? Most are just going, right, get that story done. And then they see the credits and go, done.
Yeah, I think so. That would be my gut feel. So what did you like about this? Obviously, I know that you like the game in general, but what was it about this DLC that you enjoyed?
What did I enjoy? I just enjoyed being back in this. Once I've got my boots under me, just enjoyed being back in the flow of this game and not feeling like a fraud flying everywhere, because the map was so clearly designed for you to do that. I don't know, really. It was just nice to be back in this game. Like, it gave me a new appreciation again.
Didn't you?
I did I really liked it, and you know, just seeing like this again. This is all it's an extension of the main game. It's not it's not offering much in terms of brand new, and I think this is kind of a theme for a lot of the DLCs that I've noticed, that they're not in the game of breaking the formula. It's just an extension of the formula, which is perfectly fine. Especially when you're using the same character again. Again, it's like, what can we do to make Halo more interesting? You know, you don't want that. You just kind of want to feel like you've. Given that there's a complete edition that people play this directly afterwards, they want the continuity there. But just being back in the game was really infectious. I said I've still got a few side bits I'm going to go back and do, and I'm absolutely going to go back and do those. So I'm already sort of tied into doing some of the side bits. Like, there's a nice on the theme of flying. There's a flight tracker, basically. This data that's dropped. You find the signal, and you have to follow the flight path it took to unlock like the voice notes. And they're not tricky really, but it's just a nice change up of following breadcrumbs. This time you're flying around and whatnot. But just being back in the game and just, again, marvelling at how well the character interactions are done when the story bits are coming up, when you're just getting told what to do on your next mission. Like, the facial expressions and the mannerisms really are top drawer in this. Like, it's astounding for a game that's got so many conversations, so many quests, so much stuff to do, that they've found the resource to make all these interactions look and feel amazing. Like, the facial expressions alone are really, really are impressive. I don't think they get enough credit for that. You can see what people are feeling, or what these characters are feeling, by just their subtle facial expressions, like a bit of anger. You can see their eyebrows furrow, and it's just like, yeah, I forgot this was. I've forgotten to appreciate how well they'd done this. But yeah, I can't sit here and say it's going to make you a fan of the game, because more so than ever, this is an absolute extension of it. The fact that you've got to finish the main quests means that you're already going to have to have invested a lot of time anyway. So it's a continuation rather than an uprooting and a movement.
Yeah, which I think you've already alluded to is, most DLCs, and arguably I actually think like Assassin's Creed Valhalla was a bit of a ripping up of the rule book, in that each of their DLCs was like something completely different, where they introduced like new mechanics and like it was a bit strange because you were playing like mini games, I think, there rather than actual DLC. And I think most DLCs are, it's kind of like, if you like the game, we'll give you a little bit of extra, like just to add a bit more flesh to the story. Or I mean, I think it should always be adding flesh. I don't like it where they hide an ending or a true ending behind DLC. I like when it's like, oh, go and explore this little bit that has kind of come along, or
I'd say on this instance, you could quite happily not play it and not miss a great deal, because it's like a side excursion. It's linked in. Don't get me wrong; it's completely linked in to what's occurring, but actually, it's not completely necessary. I'd say. Which is fine. It doesn't have to be. It's just, as I said, it's a new area of new people and new characters, so it's always going to have that sense of, oh, this is a bit more of a side opportunity to go off and do this. But ultimately, I think I'll be better off for playing it. It does add a bit more context in there, and there's some. If you're interested in the lore and kind of what's happened to some of these tribes, there's some interesting little spider webs that you can draw back to the main game, absolutely, that they may explore in the third game. But again, they've not stung people here and gone, if you ain't in the DLC, you're missing out on a true ending. Yes, it may set up what we might see in the third game from an overall, like, oh, here's what we're going to start the game off of, perhaps, and look at. But that's all stuff that can just be done in a very easy recap. It wasn't like you've unearthed any sort of amazing thing that's going to turn the whole universe of the game up on its head. It's like, we're here to do this specific task in this specific area. There's some side bits for us to get on with. Let's go out and do it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So is there anything that you found frustrating about this game beyond the fact that it come out 14 months after the original?
That's the main one. Absolutely. But
still want to re-kick it for that, or
no,
are you done?
I'm done with that. It's just a theme with a lot of deal. I mean, it may just be a me problem as well. I don't know. But
no, it's not. No, it's not a you problem. So if it was a you problem, I would quite happily call it out. But you can't. You cannot be doing it.
No.
It's just, you're asking so much of people. Like some games where there's like seasonal content. There's things that they bring you back periodically to sort of refresh yourself, can get away with it. But where you basically draw the line and then don't release any content or do anything for that sort of period of time, like, I think you are always going to be asking a lot of people.
Yeah, you just need some level of optional onboarding would have really been, would have been appreciated, because I was really at sea for several points to go, this is a real tough battle, and they weren't tough. I was dealing with them with absolute zero issues, and I was like, do I even have my loadout how I had it? Like, was that my optimum loadout? I remembered I really liked the throwing spikes. I remember I used to love those, but I couldn't remember all the nuances of what I'd use to set up the throwing spike. It was just the whole thing, and eventually I just figured something out, and it got through it and worked. But one of the new outfits actually really helped. Like, there's something called concentration, which slows down time, and this suit enhanced the amount of time you could do that, and you could sort of stack things to make it even. And that just gave you so much time just to slow things down and think, right, I'm going to pick my shot here, I'm going to hit this, and that helped out massively. But yeah, other than the time period, I would say that the main driving story is okay to good, not exceptional. And I'm not sure how much it really added to the overall universe, to be honest. In terms of like your task to go there and what you're doing, doesn't really didn't do it for me. Some of the stuff that you through the side stuff and just the other interactions, you understand a bit more about some of the other tribes. That's quite cool, but that's sort of on the sidelines. That's just for nerds like me who were like, oh, yeah, that's quite interesting to find that out. But the main sort of core of the story wasn't overly engaging. It's not particularly long either. Like, it's probably 7 or so missions that you'll go on. And that'll be that, which is fine. And it could have done what I think it could have done with more side quests. I've only found 2, like, proper side quests, not like side activities, like quests where you meet someone and you're doing a task with them or you're doing something for them. So I don't know if there's more lurking, but I've gone around the map a fair bit, albeit flying mostly. But it could have done with a handful more of those because they were actually really good. I really enjoyed those, and I was like, I just wanted a couple more maybe of those. But on the whole, you know, it's a net positive, and if you play this as part of the complete edition, which is available, then you'll be fine with a lot of the criticisms I've had. But whilst it seems somewhat unnecessary, it was still kind of welcome to go back into the game. So I wouldn't have gone back into it otherwise. There was no reason to go back in. So it's nice to jump back into this and have a little whirl round in Aloy's world and the Forbidden Wests and the Burning Shores, as they're called, of LA, which might actually happen in real life one day. How things going over there?
Well, never say never. So is there anything else that you want to call out before we potentially move into the gallery section of the review?
Oh, it done that thing again, didn't it? Where I start a mission and the time of day changed. Done it twice. Sorry, not going to let you get away with that anymore. Nope, that's all I've got to say on that. Not going to go through the whole Ronnieism again, but don't do that.
Consistency, please.
I don't care if the scene's set up to be at night. It ain't that big a deal.
In which case...
Do you want me to tell you the annoying thing? They solved the problem already.
Right.
I'll tell you how they solve it.
Yeah.
Meet me at the campsite. All right, you go to the campsite, no one's there. You engage with the campfire. Presumably you're waiting for a period of time. Oh, the time of day is now night. That makes sense. Not, let's go to this campsite. Your interactive partner's already there. You say hello to her and suddenly it's dark.
Yeah.
So inside this DLC, they solved it a couple of times, but then got sloppy in a couple of instances. Make me be the one waiting, and then you can do whatever time you want. Annoying.
I mean, normally they say come to me at night or something like that.
I get why they don't want to do that, because then people are like, oh, I've got to fiddle around with the time. Or maybe you don't, and you just go there, and again, it'll just transfer it to day. But just do the waiting thing. Just say, I'll meet you at the campfire when I'm ready. You turn up, and then you do a little press of the button. You see them waiting there, looking at their watch. They haven't got any watches because of the tech in this place. And then they turn up, and they're, oh, hi, good to see you. And then it's fine.
Yeah. Interesting.
Pratted it at the very death they have.
They've absolutely lost a grade for that. That's how seriously it takes it.
Don't you worry, they have. Don't you worry about that. They will be punished for that sin. I'm not having it.
Right. So let's
I want a crusade.
Let's make our way into the gallery then, shall we?
Yeah.
So, as we've explained in previous reviews, but we'll continue to do this until it's fully sunk in, you've got your 4 ranks: bronze, silver, gold, platinum, for ones that make it into the gallery. Before recently, up until recently, anything that didn't get in there was just lost into the ether, chucked out the back door, never to be seen. We didn't like that. We didn't like it. Joe didn't like it. Didn't like the idea that there were unaccounted for games just lost.
The bin men trying to take him down to the landfill. It felt somewhat cruel. They went to the landfill, but also there's an added humiliation to being in a permanent bin, isn't there? That they're always there. Someone could just find. a Hi-Fi
Well,
Rush
yeah.
from Logan in there, or a Pokemon Snap from Paper in there. Like, you can just find these random games in there. And I'm like, what's
Poor
that?
bastard's going to find them one day and play them, and just
Yeah.
it's all the turt. So yeah, we've now got what's called the botchling bin, which is anything that doesn't make it into the bronze to platinum ranking gets put in the bin altogether. All the turt kept together in the gallery. So we'll always go in now. So as we do, we walk in. I'll let you lead me to wherever you want to put this game. It's either chuck it in the bin and walking out, or actually giving it a pride of place up on the wall in a cabinet, wherever you want.
So, Burning Shores, Horizon Forbidden West DLC gets itself a nice, shiny bronze. And yes, the silver was on the cards for it until I saw they were changing times of day on me. So that is how seriously I take it. Now, I wouldn't put a game in the bin for that. I'll draw the line of being sensible somewhere. But I'm absolutely willing to knock grades down if you're going to play that game with me. So I hope this gets back to them. Because the Burning Shores could have been lurking on a nice silver, but not
getting serious with it.
Not if you're going to do things like that. And it's all luck, isn't it? Because I could have gone to that mission start at night and I never would have known.
Yeah,
It's
true,
the thing. It's unfortunate for them, but you'd solved it earlier on in the game, so don't be stinging me with things like that. So the Burning Shores, Horizon Forbidden West DLC, a nice bronze, still some high respect as far as I'm concerned. But I think that's it for this particular episode. We'll wrap up Idle Game Chat for another edition. Nothing more for us to say other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.